Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of Tech Pixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And I am delighted today to have our resident coach in Instagram on the podcast with me, Sophie Bradley. Welcome back. We love having you on. You always have some great insights on Instagram. And here we go, another year together. We've been working together now for, I think, 5 years. And
Oh
you
my
have
gosh,
been
I know.
You've been our resident Instagram coach for a long time. So you know the insides and outsides of Instagram. And at the moment, I have to say, everyone's upset.
What is Instagram doing? My gosh, Instagram has really upset, like you said, so many people because they're talking about this blue badge verification, and they're testing it out in Australia and New Zealand. And the reason why people are upset is because it well it's going to be potentially a paid subscription, about $14.99, I think it is. And with that, you're going to get support, which is a good thing. So you're going to have access to dedicated support. That's a good thing. But one of the big things that's cropped up as an issue is the fact that they're talking about you're going to get better reach, you're going to get better visibility with it. So what it's saying is that actually, if you pay for something, you're going to get a better service than those who are using Instagram in an organic way. And obviously that there's also people who are using ads as well. So therefore there's sort of a blur there in the boundaries. So Instagram is doing its usual thing, whereby it tends to look around. Sorry, I have to say that it looks around and it goes, oh, TikTok is doing this, I've got to do it. Oh, Twitter, Elon Musk has verified, got people to buy this blue badge verification. Maybe I'll do something similar. And also, Meta needs to generate money because it's having a bad time of it. Actually, it's not quite doing the way it normally does. So it's pushing people down that route of thinking that they'll need to, get involved with this verification process. You don't have to, and you won't have to. And they're testing it, as I said. And I think as well that I was thinking about this. Who's this actually going to be for? And because Instagram are massively about creators, and we're all creators on Instagram, but I would say they're really pushing influencer and affiliate marketing. And for people who don't necessarily have a business as such, they provide products and services, but people who link up and collaborate with brands, and sell, advertise those brands' products. I actually am wondering if a lot of this is to do with authenticating those people, because when you're on TikTok, there's a lot of issues with TikTok and people selling. It's just the way I've been thinking about it. There's a lot of issues with the way people, can sell things. There's been a lot of scamming on it. There's been a lot of issues. It's a great, don't get me wrong, it's actually a great platform, and it has, huge power as well. But I was just thinking, in what way could Instagram differentiate themselves from TikTok that they've been copying quite a bit? Well, maybe if they make people more authentic, and when you actually then work with people who are brands and they have to give their documents, government documents and ID, to make sure that they are authentic and they are true on Instagram itself, then maybe actually
Maybe
you
it
make
works.
yourself different and make people believe in your platform, and the people who are using your platform are people who you can trust. I was just thinking aloud like that maybe it isn't actually for your business owners in its usual sort of format, but maybe it's slightly more for the creators, because they said that they don't think they're going to have as many people taking up on this verification process. So I was just trying to think, why would you do this if you're going to have a backlash? But maybe it's not actually for everybody. Any case, I signed up to get the information when it comes through as quickly as possible. So you can do that. You can sign up and go on the waiting list. Oh, it's the waiting list.
The waiting list for the blue tick.
Yeah, for the blue tick. So it's that. I think it's upset people because it sort of feels a bit. I was looking at some other Instagram coaches. One who's wonderful, Kirsty, who's a tech pixie, Rewildergram, And she was saying it feels a bit icky, and I would actually agree. But I think people will probably, if it stays in its format at the moment, in the way that they're testing it, and it stays that I think people will probably sign up to get that additional support. They probably will, if they can
Well,
afford it, pay to get that visibility. People will, because if you have a business and you have that available funds, then you will use it in that way to grow. And I do think people will, but the funds are expensive as well. In this time, cost of living issues going on, it's expensive, $14.99, and you've got lots of subscriptions out there. So you'll have to be really strategic in the way that you decide how you're going to use Instagram. And I think that will be one of the key things, actually, is that if you're going to get on board with it, when it comes here, if it stays in its current format, I think you're really going to have to, think about your strategy, which you need to in any case. And it's something that Tech Pixies is really good at, helping you to learn about, is actually how to use these platforms, not just for their features, but in a strategic way. And I know in your podcast last week, when you're talking to V about Facebook, you were doing exactly that. You were talking about the importance of using Instagram in a strategic way, and that, yeah. So I don't know if you want to say anything about
yeah,
my
I
idea.
mean, I find it interesting. We got approved for a blue badge, and then they pulled the blue badge, and trying to get anyone to say, like, give us anything was, any information as to why they pulled it was really challenging. I do see the advantage though with a lot of the fake accounts and everything else,
Yeah,
that there's that little barrier that if someone's going to create 1,000 fake accounts, suddenly instead of being $14.99, it's going to be a lot more than that for them. It's going to be
yeah,
like, thousands and thousands and thousands a month. So I do think there is an advantage to that. And I don't think it's, $14.99 is, it's a significant increase off of zero. And
yeah,
if you've got multiple platforms, but at the same time, I do think it's sort of like having HTTPS on your website. Your
yeah,
there was a day when people didn't have to have the S on their HTTPS. They didn't have to have an SSL certificate. And when we were building websites, before I set up Tech Pixies, I ran a website company. And when we were building websites for people, everyone had to have the
yeah,
SSL certificate. And now you can't build a website without a SSL certificate. So I think in a way it's like the SSL certificate of social media. And I think if we look at it like that, then actually we're looking at it like, okay, this person's been verified. They've had to give their business details. I know I was filling out that information because Tech Pixies has a business account for TikTok, and I was filling that information out last night, and then suddenly it wanted the address, and I was like, wait, hang on, I don't know if I want my address because
yeah,
we have a business address, and that's one big piece of advice I'd give everyone is have a
yeah,
business address. But we're in transition right now of switching that business address. But you can get a business address, but often like a PO box, they won't accept
yeah.
that. So it's getting a verified business address as well that, it counts for you. So very interesting discussion about that, but also, sort of just this conversation. Everyone who's leaned into Instagram the last 5 or so years is now obviously having to very quickly learn how to use TikTok because that's where a lot of the views and virality is going. But it just feels a little bit like you're fighting for engagement on Instagram. So what are you thinking about what's happening from a trend perspective in 2023 with engagement?
Well, I mean, they Reels has been pushed since 2020, hasn't it? And last year was huge again with Reels. It really was, and they added additional features to Reels, transitions and templates to make it easier to actually use and make your creativity easier and more effective for your audience. Reels are still very much there. They are, but they've dropped of late. They have. Reach has really dropped. And I've been on, big accounts that really use Reels incredibly well. and get it, how to create this short, sharp, concise, video that really gets the messaging through, with a clear, hook that's there and directs you down to your caption really well, and holds you for, could be just 15 seconds up to well, now they're up to 15 minutes reels, which is kind of weird, but that's another story. But the thing with Instagram now is that they were all like, oh, it's all going to be about reels. But now they're saying, actually, we want you to be more creative with your content, and we want you to come back to using photos, and and having a more of a rounded approach to your creative approach on Instagram. So using static images, they're talking about, will be beneficial. One thing I would say when you're using static images is to, I always think this is a good tip actually, is to use them on size 1080 by 1350. So not the square one, but something that's slightly larger, because it almost fits with the sizing of a reel size. And when people scroll through, if they have an image that's actually slightly larger on their screen, on their mobile, they're more likely to slow down, and it slows the scroll. You can't help it. It just does, because it's taking up more of that space on your mobile. So it's something that, although very small, actually is really effective. So images are really good. And carousels. I love carousels. I
I
really
love
do.
carousels
I
too.
really do. I think they're a really good way to present a different story, or you can insert them with static images and with video as well. It doesn't have to be just images the whole way through. You can use up to 10 different images or videos as well. I think carousels they can be used for educational purposes, to show you something before and after as well. I think they're really powerful actually, and because they, if used well, they get people to scroll through, and bit by bit it means that those people actually are engaging with your content. And because it's slower, the algorithm feels that that content is being valued, that content is actually of interest, and therefore it's more likely that those algorithms on Instagram are more likely to go, hey, this is a good piece of content, we're going to show it to more people.
The other thing I like about the carousel is how Instagram displays it. So you will see one slide, and then the next time you see it, you'll see a different slide, and then the next time you see it, a different slide. So what it's doing is it's using the different content to then show it to people multiple times. And actually what that's doing is the algorithm's going, okay, which picture are people engaging with the most? And they're switching it up so it's almost like split testing your post, which is why it's working. Julia's watching right now, and she says, my carousels are doing much better again now. I love using them for my tips. And I think that's a great point.
No, they really are. They are an absolute, a winner, but they have been all along. The thing is, as well, with your Instagram content that you create, it's so important, as I said, to be strategic about it, but to actually look at your insights. One of the biggest things that people often don't do is they don't use their insights on Instagram. You can literally tap underneath the post that you've created and look that way, or you can go into your professional dashboard, or you can go up to the burger bars, but use your insights to actually understand what people are interacting with. And if people are saving content, think about, they're saving content, actually that's the type of content that's working for my audience. Because even when reels were at their massive point, there was nothing wrong with still using carousels and images back then, because if your audience actually really appreciate it, because they really appreciate that you put a static image out there and you write a caption that they connect with, that they just that is something that means something to them, and they know that that's the type of content that they're going to come to when they come to you, and they save it and they like it and they comment on it. Don't fear and think, well, I've just got to use reels, and I've got to use reels that are going to be quick format. Think about it, be strategic in the way, because although everybody goes on about what the algorithms are doing on Instagram, no one really knows full-heartedly what those algorithms are.
Well,
You know,
and
you read
especially
all
since
the sorry, go on.
now AI is involved.
Oh
No one
God.
really knows because AI basically codes itself. I just wanted to bring this up because I think what you're talking about is really relevant to some of the stuff we've been trying. So we've been testing out alternating reels with carousels, and really what I've been doing is sort of mini blog posts, if you will.
Yeah.
So I've done a carousel, and then I've got 3-4 paragraphs and then a couple hashtags, and we find that these are doing really well, and they're literally like mini blog posts. They're only maybe a couple hundred words, sometimes the full length of it, but interspersing that with reels, and they are doing way better than the reels were. One of the other things that we found was that our sort of short clips from our podcast weren't doing as well as we would have liked. And so we've switched to a slightly different format, which is me doing a summary of the podcast and some key points as a talking reel, and putting that together with some music. And that's actually doing a bit better. But it is really interesting. You do need to look at your statistics and go, that's just not working. We've got to change it up. And what was really shocking to us was the fact that carousels just suddenly started doing so much better than reels. And so this strategy of switching between carousel and reel, I think, is really important. And actually, as you were talking, I was looking at your feed, and you had your top tips, and I'm thinking actually we could turn the podcast, especially these trend ones, there's so many great tips that are coming out of them. We could try a carousel with tips from the podcast as well, and that would be a fun way to reintroduce the branding. So you've got that mix of things.
I think with carousel posts, it's just endless. You could, if you've created a blog as well, so you've just talked about a podcast, you can use different elements of that podcast into a carousel. If you created a blog that you actually want to drive, as part of your lead magnet, you're going to actually generate that, and you want people to come back to see that, you can give people a taster of your blog that you want people to come back to. So, it's there. It gives them a taster. You give them that, push and that incentive to go to your bio, to look at it in there. But you can say link in bio, put your username in it again, which is a really good technique actually in your caption, is to ensure that when you say link in bio, I always think that then I've got to go back up to the top of the caption and put the username there actually, and it straight away.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, link in bio, then you put the username, and then they click on it and they go straight to the bio.
It takes them straight to the bio, because I know it sounds ridiculous. It's something so small, but I looked, somebody did it actually last year, and I thought, oh my God, that's so clever, because I literally, as they did it, and they said link in bio, but click here, with the little finger. I clicked on it. There I was, straight in the bio, because otherwise you've got to go to the top of the caption. If the caption's long, it doesn't sound much, but you've got to scroll a little bit.
That's genius. I really, really like
just
that.
Just a little thing which makes the user journey, because it's about making the user journey, easier. It's mirroring, like you said about websites, it's mirroring our behaviors in life, that we are fast-paced. Life is incredibly, complicated. There's lots going on. We want ease of it. It's making us a little bit lazy as well. So we have to be careful about that. But in order to use it again in a strategic way, it's thinking about the user journey, how we can make things easier for people to access information.
Well, that's a great point. Sorry to cut you off. That's a great point, because one of the things that I have learned is what people do when they create a blog post or a podcast post is that often if they use WordPress, the entire title will end up in the URL. So, if you have for example, if I called this podcast episode, I think it's 176 Instagram, trends, you'd end up having this techpixies.com/episode -176 blah, 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 all these things.
Yeah.
So one of the things we started doing, and I think Amy Porterfield does it even better, but one of the things we started doing was putting the episode and then the number. So techpixies.com/episode 157. And then if you put it in the text, at least it's easy for someone to remember. They just have to type in Tech Pixies episode 157 and it'll pop up. And so I think one of the really important things is, I love your tip, and I think your tip is fantastic, especially if you remember to update your link in bio. But the other tip I would say is, if you are going to put links on Instagram, they don't click through unless you put them in a sticker, but make them really simple. Make them really simple. And so if you write a blog post every single week, start numbering them. Just you could do blog 1, blog 2, blog 3, blog 4, or just even put the numbers. And that's what Amy does. I think she just does the number. So it's like 527 or whatever. And that just makes it really easy when you're going to look, because you're looking for a specific number for a blog post or a specific number for a podcast. I'm just thinking that might be one way to still put the link in the description, but just make it really easy for people to go to. Like, if we want people to sign up for our boot camp, we just give them techpixies.com/bootcamp. We don't give them this huge long link, because they'll never remember it and click on it.
No,
So
it really is about making the user journey as easy as possible, and so that it's catchy. You know, thinking about a hook line, you want it to be concise and to the point, and that's what you want within, you know, your the way you use Instagram. It links up really well with keywords, and you know, SEO is something that actually Instagram is getting better at. You know, so thinking about when you use Instagram, ensuring that your username is searchable, ensuring that your bio, actually you use key terminology linked to your business, linked to your niche, you know, people, it becomes searchable again. Think about it when you use your captions as well. Make it relevant to your business, what it is that you are, you know, selling, you know, what it is that you're talking about. Bring that in all the time. So again, it comes back to that strategic way of using Instagram. Instagram is really fun. So I don't want people to go, oh my God, there's just so much to think about and I don't want to do this and I'm not going to enjoy it. What it's doing is take a step back, slow it down, and actually think about, how can I use this really powerful platform in a way to benefit my business and me, and actually my community, who I want to work with and who I want to bring joy to, or whatever it is that you're doing. Think of it like that. So SEO, again, we're mirroring websites, which you talked about before. You know, we're not, it's not reinventing the wheel. Actually, we're looking at behaviors that we've done elsewhere and we're bringing them into a platform to develop it and help it to grow. But SEO is really key. So in your captions, think about the words that you use, and it does help for that searchability. You know, they talked about, I think it was last year, I read an article and it was saying that, you know, Google need to be careful because Instagram as a search engine is a huge thing. And I know that TikTok is now, you know, TikTok's huge for that. TikTok are doing adverts everywhere now about its searchable functions, you know, so, and that's something I know that, you know, is within, you know, the course on with Tech Pixies about TikTok. So it's there as well within Instagram. So think about that. Hashtags. They're a funny one. You know, Adam Mosseri goes, he's head of Instagram, and says, you know, no, they're not that important. And then they're still there. There's still availability of 30 hashtags. So there must be something there. It can't harm. Put your hashtag still within your caption because it's linked to that SEO element of keyword search, and use those strategic. You don't have to use all 30. Test it again. See if you're getting, you know, generating from your hashtags. The only problem with that is that insights on Instagram are not great when it comes to your hashtags. So they might tell you that you've generated, I don't know, you know, like 500, you know, views from your hashtags, but actually you don't know, you can't differentiate it. So it's a little bit tough with that. But it's there as a feature, so think about it again.
I definitely think there's we started minimizing. Instead of doing 30 because it felt really spammy, we started minimizing to like 5 or 6 and pick a few key ones. Hashtags certainly are very important on TikTok. I think they're not, like you said, I think they're not as powerful on Instagram, but they're not important. Let's just put it that way.
It's that it's a weird one. They're not important, but they're not quite how we thought they were. But
Yeah.
again, it's a weird one
It
because I've looked out there and I'm always looking to see what's going on in, publications, big blogs, big Instagrammers as well, and seeing what they're saying about it. And they're not saying don't use it. They're genuinely not. So I would say stick with it, and test. And I think that's the thing. It's not to get too fixated on you have to do it this way. You have to only use reels in this format. You have to only use carousels in this format. You can do it in your way and test it. Test, review, test, and review.
So Gloria, Gloria's listening. She says, I've
Oh,
just
right.
arrived.
Okay.
Please explain what a carousel is. So a carousel is effectively when you've got static images and then you can rotate through those images. And there you can have images and video is what Sophie was saying. So I have a couple here that are just that I'm showing on the screen that are just a couple pictures that rotate through. And you like Sophie said, you can also do video as well. It doesn't just have to be photos. But this longer format photo versus a square photo, like Sophie was saying, covers up the whole screen and makes a big difference. So that's what that is. So Sophie, one of the things that you have talked about before is when we've done the trends. So a couple of years ago, or even last year, it was shopping was the big deal on. There were all these new features introduced for shopping. How's shopping doing on Instagram these days?
Shopping is still good, but it's not. It's an interesting one actually because shopping had its own tab on the homepage on Instagram, and that's not there anymore. So I think it tells you actually that although e-commerce is still very much there, and if you have products, do set up a shop on Instagram and on Facebook, because it's incredibly powerful to be able to link through. You have got so many different features still. You can tag products on your reels, you can tag them on your posts, you can, when you go live, you can tag your products in there when you're going live as well. So it's an incredibly powerful resource to be able to use. So if you have products, definitely set up an Instagram shop. Tech Pixies, I think you've got a checklist of how you can actually do that. I think, haven't you? I
Yeah, it's
believe.
one of the
Yeah.
bonuses in the Instagram and Facebook module is how to set up your Facebook Instagram shop.
Yeah, and it's invaluable actually, and it's because it's a little bit fiddly at times. It is, and it sends you down, one path, and you're like, what am I doing? But actually, once you've got it set up, and you can link it in really well with what you're posting about, it's invaluable. But it's interesting that it's not there on the homepage. What they've done on the navigation bar at the bottom is that they've now moved your Instagram Reels across, so it's not taking precedence in its central position. And what they've brought is back the little cross in the center, which is where you have your posting options. So, like posting an image or reel or stories.
That
So
feels a lot like TikTok.
does it? Does it really, Joy?
Oh my gosh. Anyway.
But
So now I swear we're gonna end up doing an interview one year, which is like, is Instagram dead? I just did, is Facebook dead? And of course, Facebook is alive and well. And Instagram is not dead yet. And it's still a wonderful place to be, a wonderful place to build on. It's just a little bit harder. All right, so we've got to wrap this up. Do you have you had some brilliant tips in there about the link in bio. Any other fab tips that we need to know about?
What I was going to say is, just before I go, that the three main priorities is that Adam Mosseri, the man himself, who's now in London. I thought I was going to see him the other day down in Chelsea. No, because he goes to the Saatchi Gallery all the time, and I was like some kind of weird person hanging out, hoping he was around. Any case, that's another story. So is to inspire. Sorry, Adam. Inspire creativity. And as I said, to use these different, features like carousels and images and reels and in a strategic way. But also is, Instagram wants you to discover new things, and so it wants you to come on and engage with different types of content, and find new accounts and use it as a place to enjoy and to be inspired and not be too overwhelmed by the noise that can be on social media. It wants you to enjoy it again. It's going back to the old days, which people like to talk about, going back to the old days of how it used to be a little bit more. So it's trying to bring back people who disappeared off or who complained about it, but also collaboration, sparking connections, really, really key. And some of the accounts that do it incredibly well, using the collaboration feature, but not just that, thinking again about who you can actually link up with, who complements your business or complements you and your values and the way you're wanting to sort of direct the work that you're doing or the message that you want to put out there. Who can complement that? That might be somebody in my world. It could be another social media person. There are people who are social media consultants who link up and do it incredibly well. There are people who, have got really good knowledge about videography, and then people who have got really good knowledge about social media management, and they link up. You've got copywriters who link up and talk and do lives and and collaborate that way and share content about what they're doing together in a carousel format. On Reels, and they use that collaborator feature, which is really powerful, because then you're seen on both of those Instagram pages. It was there last year, but it's something that's really being pushed, and that's
it's
also
still there. You should still be using it.
It really is. No, it really is, and it's also because they're encouraging the creators to to link up with new brands. It's about affiliate marketing is still very much there. About influencers, again, they're pushing that because it's TikTok mirroring. You can see where it is, but collaborating is so powerful. It's so powerful because if you're doing this on your own, it's actually quite, sometimes it can feel overwhelming. So if you partner up with another brand or business that you align with really well, whether they're a sort of a direct competitor or not, there's always going to be something different. I always say that, if I link up with another social media person, we're going to have a slightly different niche. We're going to have our audience is going to be slightly, our delivery is going to be different. We're going to have a slightly different, service or product that we actually are providing. There's room for us all, but partnering up is actually really powerful and really great way to grow your community faster, because more eyes see it. So you're getting yourself out to a greater audience that way. So collaboration, I love. I do, Joy. I've always gone about this.
Big fan of that.
But yeah,
I think you've made some great points, and I think we just have to close on the fact that.
Yeah.
And this is what I talk the last point I always make in the boot camp, which is the sales are in the mails. We've got to also leverage social media to get people off of social media and into our inboxes, because that's where the longer term relationship can happen, because social media does not get seen by as many people as open your emails.
No.
And this combination of building up an audience online, you also want to make sure that translates into emails, because that's where the sales are. And I think that's a mistake people still make with social media. They're not building up a mailing list while they're building up a social media following. So they get to, they might get to 100, someone who might have 100 to 500 followers on social media who also has 100 to 500 emails, they're actually going to probably have a stronger, financially more sound business than someone who might have 5,000 followers, but no emails. And I think that's one of the things people forget about when you're not an influencer. And we work with a lot of people who aren't influencers. They might be micro influencers, but they're not influencers in what we would define as having hundreds of thousands or millions of followers. So one of the things that we need to have as small business owners is the ability to build a mailing list off of social media. And I do think, people do good DM strategies and bad DM strategies, so we don't really have time to get into good and bad DM strategies, but using direct messaging on Instagram, it is one way to connect with people, a very powerful way to connect with people. And with the Meta Business Suite, you've got the ability to sort of manage that inbox, if you will. And you can add tags, and you can mark emails as done, and mark emails, or not, they're not emails, but they act like emails. So, but don't mistake them for emails. That's my point. Don't mistake the inbox for Instagram with an email, because they're not the same thing. But I do think that there's powerful capability with DMs that we haven't really touched on. So I think something to think about for people, but don't forget about your mailing list, folks, because that's where I see a lot of businesses that feel like they're not getting sales. if I ask them how many people they've got on their mailing list, they can't tell me the answer, or they don't have one, or they have a list and they're not emailing it. That's where things start to fall down. Instagram could disappear tomorrow. Your mailing list.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's 100%. And that's the thing with all of these platforms, actually. But, we're talking about Instagram here, is that you don't own it. And that's one thing, actually, I wanted to say, is that when you create content, if it's something that you think you can repurpose elsewhere, save your content. So if you create a reel on Instagram, save it to your camera, put it into a folder, save it, and the same thing with, if you're writing your captions, that's why it's good to use something like Business Suite. That's why it's good. I always write it on a document first, actually, and then save it, because then I can repurpose it elsewhere. So think about like that. Think about when you do lives, save them as well, because then you can repurpose them elsewhere. Last year, when Instagram went down, I lost a lot of my lives that I'd created, but because I had them saved on my camera, I could actually repurpose them and reshare them again. So what you do, never sort of trust that that's yours, and save your content and create it elsewhere so that you can repurpose it onto other platforms as well. But yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, on that note, that was a whirlwind tour
Ciao.
of what's trending in Instagram in 2023. Thank you, Sophie. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
They can find me at Socially Sophie B over on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm loving LinkedIn. I know you talked about LinkedIn a few weeks ago. I'm really loving it, although they're adopting some Instagram features. They're doing more carousels. Any case, but that's where you can find me. Do come and say hi. I'm the lady in pink, which I keep being told, and the Scamp and Dude kind of person. But yeah, lovely to see you, Joy.
Bye. Thanks, Sophie.
See you soon. Bye.